philosophy behind our training at Michael Johnson Performance is born out of the same philosophy that I used in my career to become successful. It's adapted, though, to athletes and their particular goals. We use the same philosophy for each athlete, but it is specifically tailored to what they're trying to achieve. Michael Johnson Performance Global Services provides training programs to individual athletes, professional soccer teams, football teams, Olympic federations around the world. We provide coach education programs. We provide talent ID programs. We design pathway development programs for athletes looking to get to the next level. We provide nutrition and mental skills support, training camps here at Michael Johnson Performance, but we also are able to base coaches on site with our partners globally around the world, wherever they might be. We've got customers all around the world that we've worked with, and each one has a unique challenge, and we are able to provide a unique and bespoke solution for them.
With the right people, with the right communication and technology, and the right mindset going in, that we're all collaborating to make sure that this athlete is the best version of themselves tomorrow, is really a true challenge, but it's also probably the true differentiator for MJP in the global space.
MJP innovates in the area of training a few different ways. The first one is we traveled the globe looking for best practice. The second is we scoured the research and the science to really extract what's best for our athletes. And the third is we examine sports and athletes to find out what their needs are so that we can best develop programs for them.
For every athlete, they have potential. They understand what their potential is. Our objective is to help them to get there.
So that gives you a quick snapshot of where I get to work every day. It allows me to leverage some of the background that I got from being a strength coach, from being a physio, from being a researcher, and being a dork that spends a lot of time while everybody else is asleep reading and watching videos and coming to conferences like this, and making a lot of mistakes. So this is almost 25 some plus years of me making mistakes. And I'm going to share with you some things today that are challenges of mine that I'm failing forward with every day, but I'm excited because there's some innovative stuff coming out. There's some innovation that's happening right now. We're finding out, because we've made a lot of mistakes, where this innovation is. I see a lot of young coaches in here. Guys, there's so much innovation that needs to be had in this space in our profession right now. We are one of the slowest developing professions in the world. And I've been around that thing right there. And we are one of the slowest developing. And one of the reasons is we lack innovation. We lack innovation. But everybody has innovation in them. You all have a genius inside of you. And so I challenge you today to make sure you look at this with an open mind. Most of this is non-research based. Most of this is anecdotal. But if nothing else, maybe it sets off a little trigger in your mind to go, you know what, I'm going to look at things differently. I'm going to flip things on its side a little bit and see if there's some ways to innovate in this space that makes us not just better, but better, right? Better is what I'm going to be talking about today, not better. What you heard from the previous speakers, coaches, you guys, unbelievable stuff. They are in the trenches every day making guys better. My job here is I've got to work with some of those athletes that have come through some of those unbelievable strength programs. And you know what they ask for me? Better. I got to find stuff that may not be harvested just yet. That's my job. And it gets harder and harder because the strength coaches that are surrounding these athletes now is getting better and better. So it makes my job harder. But innovation, I want you to think a little bit more about innovation. We're going to talk about speed. But please don't disregard what I showed you as I'm showing off. It's not real world. I'm not in a real world setting. I'm not seeing 400 guys at once coming in. No, we're seeing them 6 and 8 and 12 at a time. We'll see 5,000 athletes this year out of that facility. All ages, 9 all the way up to some of our elite pros. I got an NFL guy that's upper 30s right now, and everything in between. All sports, from tennis to bull riding to ballet to NFL combine, you name it, we see it all. So it's not real world. But it's one of those cool sort of petri dishes where we're able to grow a lot of cool stuff. And I want to share some of that with you today. So what we're going to do, I'm going to talk 1,000 times faster than I normally do. I'm going to share some deck stuff. Then we're going to jump outside and take you through some learn by doing. But this is mainly a stimulus sort of a talk, okay? You may not write down a whole bunch of stuff that I'm going to go back and use tomorrow, but I want this to be sort of that catalytic talk that makes you go, phew, man, this guy's kind of crazy. He kind of takes this stuff too seriously, because I probably do, okay? And I don't have a work-life balance. I think that's something that coaches, we all talk about. There is no such thing as that in our profession if you really want to be kick-ass, right? It's a work-life what? Blend, right? And any successful strength coach or any successful performance director will probably tell you the same thing, that it is a true blend. And I'm living proof of that, and thank goodness I got a family that supports that and friends that support me. But it is not, it's not far off of what our mission is. Our mission is to create the realization of potential in any athlete, any sport, any age, or any natural ability. Taken from a lecture that I did for NSCA state conference in A&M a few years ago, the ABCs of coaching, and Coach Wilson brought this up, was one of them was competency. And this is what this course is all about, is developing your competency. Because all of you are going to work your 8-hour, 10-hour days, right? You shouldn't be paid for that 8 or 10 hours. You should be paid on the value you bring to those 8 or 10 hours. And I'm a true believer in that you need to be able, as a coach, as a developer, as a personal trainer, it's not quality over quantity. It's quality in quantity that defines greatness. And I think we all can kind of gravitate towards that. We got 4 darts to throw. We're going to hit them at the target, right? Because in my field right now, I have less and less darts to throw. And in a lot of cases, the darts is time. I just don't have enough time. I need to do what you need to get done in 6 weeks. I need it done in 3. Instead of 4 days a week, I only have 2. Can you help me? I've got to be able to say yes because I'm a business. Because that's what the consumer wants. And I've got to sometimes violate what the physiological sacred cows tell me. Some of the textbooks of the 70s and circa 60s and even circa 50s, I'm having to kind of burn a little bit. Because we limited ourselves when we looked at those books and didn't think about what does the consumer want? What's the next thing? We got to look out that way and build it backwards to that as a business. And I think those are some things, some trappings that can help you whatever setting you're in. We have an NXT lab, a Nike lab in our facility. This is one of the things that makes me cry in my beer at night. This applied sports science field that you see is progressing so much and proliferating even into the collegiate ranks here in the States. It's been around for about 15 years in the UK and almost 20 years in Australia. So it's not new, it's just that it's kind of gravitated into the States. And what this does is it provides data, and data is a voice of the athlete. Data is a voice of the athlete that we in the United States haven't listened to as well as the rest of the world. We're catching up now. A lot of people are scared of the applied people. Why? Because it might incriminate you that you're not as good as you think you are, coach. It does to me every day. This is the most uncomfortable thing in my facility right now. I've got 2 full-time biomechanists that come in and tell me where I'm wrong every day. All right? And I'm going to share with you some of those where I was wrong that's actually guided me into what I think may be right, and we may be on the track right going forward. And we have all sorts of evaluations that we do with these folks, from OptiJump to force plates. We got 6 force plates, unilateral force plates we got 20 meters of OptiJump. We've got high-speed rail systems. We've got 26 Raptor 3D motion cameras. Why are they in our space? Why is Nike taking all this data? They want to create a better shoe, right? I want to create a better athlete. That's a synergy. Okay? When we're looking at things at centimeters, they're looking at things in millimeters. And it helps me. It brings that data to me that I can actually see it and comprehend it and help me make my training better the next day. So those are sort of synergies that I think all of you guys can probably gravitate to. When you have the opportunity, gravitate to those things where there's synergy, where both sides are getting something out of the equation. We're looking at things like sleep. We're looking at things like recovery. I know you guys are all doing that. We're even looking at learning styles. How does an athlete learn when they learn? How does a coach learn when they learn? Do you guys know as coaches, you guys coach to your learning preference? You realize that? You're a visual learner. So guess how you coach? Visual cues. Are you a tactile coach? You coach to your cues. We found that out. That's a limitation, right? Especially if 80% of the group that you're coaching is visual and you're a tactile coach. And what does the coach say when he walks? That guy doesn't get it. Come on, man. Leverage the data. Leverage the data to optimize the positioning of that information so they'll bring it in. So we're leveraging all this technology to do this, right? Measure those 6 components of athleticism, find out where their areas of opportunity are, and then expand it. Blow up that Z curve. I don't care what sport you are. The better athlete you are for your sport, the better chance you have of realizing your potential in that sport. If anybody disagrees with that, I'd love to debate with you. And I'll be here all day long. Because I need some people to disagree with me once in a while. That's not true. Okay? If you have Lionel Messi and his evil twin brother, Lionel Messi, you guys who know who Messi is? He's a somewhat famous soccer guy, right? Okay. And you have Lionel Messi's evil twin brother that you get him 10% better or even just 1% better athletically, skill stays the same. Which player do you want on your Champions League team? You want the evil twin brother that's 1% more athletic, don't you? Why is everybody shaking their head like, yeah, of course you do. It's conventional wisdom, and that's all that we do at MJP. That's all that we do. We look for those opportunities. We have a vernacular that we use. It helps us to communicate. There's a lot of sort of ambiguity and slang terms in our profession, so we've just adopted this as our 6-component model of speed, strength, stamina, suppleness, skill, and strategy. Those are the 6 modifiable but limiting characteristics of any athlete, any sport. Diving, bull riding, ballet, ultimate frisbee, NFL lineman. They all have amounts of these things. These are all also measurable now and changeable. 10 years ago, about 4 of these weren't even measurable. So technology has allowed us to start to measure things like recovery, regeneration, be able to measure reaction response time, dynamic visual acuity, be able to measure learning strategies, some of those things that we weren't able to measure before. So the idea is to also understand that they're not mutually exclusive from one another. So as an example, we're going to talk about multidirectional speed. We know that stability has a line of sight on multidirectional speed, right? That's pretty common. Stability, more stable you are, the better potential you have for multidirectional speed. No duh, right? It doesn't stop there. These categories are not mutually exclusive. I'm going to go work on my speed. You're not just working on your speed, okay? We are working on multiple pieces of this puzzle. There's so much ambiguity and squishy space in here, it's impossible to separate it out and say, I'm only going to work on linear speed today. There's too much crossover. There's too much interference and crossover effect that happens. And all these things, if you've trained all these things, you could improve your multidirectional speed without actually doing multidirectional speed work. As an example, Coach Wilson was talking about squats. Squats is a cure-all for a lot of things, right? It will enhance your ability to be better multidirectionally. There's no doubt about it. But it doesn't do everything. It's not a one-trick pony. It's not a panacea. It's not a silver bullet, right? If you have time and resources and ability, you can start to add some other pieces to that to bring out the best of what the squat has given them. As one example, and you can go through all those different modules the same way. So what, you say? So what? There's a new model of multidirectional speed coming. It's not here yet. I'm proposing one. This is the one I'm proposing. But the concept of agility is too slang for us. Okay, we're too sophisticated a profession to use the word agility anymore. I think we've got to be better than that. So for us, it's multidirectional speed. Multidirectional speed in our model encompasses changing direction, angular acceleration, and then grafting. And grafting is where you're grafting movement skills together. You're grafting a linear sprint with a back pedal, with a drop step. Those grafting things, that's where hidden speed really is. And I'll show you some examples of that. This is real world, right? Watch. What do you see? Hopefully you're seeing some things. You're seeing reactive. When I say reactive, I'm talking about reaction, response, reactive. I'm not talking about reactive strength index here. I'm talking about reactive, driving the visual cortex dynamically down through the chain, right? So they're reacting to somebody. What else do you see? Changing direction. You guys can see both of those. Can you guys see the angular speed? Can you see some of the radian runs? They're running, but they're running at angles, right? Or in some cases, they're shuffling at speed. No backpedaling, I think, on this one. You guys have the tools necessary to be the best in the world at multidirectional speed if you can see what we just talked about right there. You've got to open your eyes and watch. When you watch the basketball games this weekend, do me a favor, don't watch the ball so much. Watch one player for a 2-minute period of time, up and down the court. Don't watch the ball. Watch him for 2 minutes, and you'll see all these same things. If all you do is watch the ball, you're seeing basketball. When you just watch the player, you see what? You see movement. You see movement. And all of a sudden, you empower yourselves with all the tools and you got everything you need. You got the keys to the castle if you can see movement. Okay? Now, do you see movement? Do you see a natural cut? Do you see a speed cut? Do you see a change in direction versus an angular cut? Can you see what this gentleman here is doing with the ball here? He's doing an inside-out cut, right? Inside edge of his outside foot. He's going back to the right. He's got his center of mass shifted over to the right. He's trying to change direction. This guy here, Nile Davis of Arkansas, now with the Kansas City Chiefs. What's he doing? He's literally running that break. That is an angular acceleration. He is accelerating. And if you look at that, if you came around and brought the camera over here, what would it look like? It would look like a linear sprint. You with me? You seeing movement? Are you with me? Come on, guys. It's movement, but there's two different things. They're both going back to the right, correct? Using two different technical things. two different movement patterns, two different motor patterns. I can dump squats on both of these guys and make the output of the horsepower of that amped up. I'm not changing the motor pattern with squats. Do you guys see the difference there between the strength and the movement, right? Squats help, but squats don't drive the motor patterns that these guys use, okay? Are you with me? Everybody good with that? Right, yeah, kind of ambiguous a little bit. Two different tests. There's two different tests at the NFL Combine for these two things. And a lot of people say, why do they do the change in direction test or the 5-10-5 test and the L drill? I can tell you why. Somebody 50 years ago figured this out long before I did. Those two things measure two different things. The 5-10-5 drill that you see here on the right with this number 25 is a change in direction. The L drill incorporates change in direction, but it has an element of this angular acceleration. And again, you see Johnny Manziel running that curve. These are elements of speed that to this point we've kind of left untapped as coaches, as movement specialists. And I think you're going to find some cool things that you can add to your programming that'll help kind of drive some of these motor patterns to bring out some of that horsepower that you're getting with the most important bit, which is getting them stronger, right? So we're just trying to amplify things. Watch movement. Watch some soccer. I know soccer's not popular here in the States. Guys, what's the #1 sport in the world? Soccer. Get used to it, okay? It's a great sport. Don't poo-poo it anymore. Strength coaches, we did a lot of poo-poo in the soccer. Unbelievable athletic demands. Watch soccer. Watch some Champions League. Watch some English Premier League on Saturdays, early mornings. And watch some of the movement that happens. Unbelievable movement. And a lot of it, most of the mileage covered is what type of multidirectional speed? Angular accelerations. Not changing direction, angular accelerations. Same with some of the key positions on the football field. Some of those rush ins, you watch all the angles that they're running. There's change in direction in there too, but are you guys getting a flavor for the differences? It's important. It's important. So you begin to break this down further into the so what. We've got these three elements. There's three sort of categories of things that you can morph and you can change and adjust to optimize the athletes for those things. So everybody does mobility work. I can tell you from our standpoint, from our research, mobility tends to favor change in direction. So mobility could be thought of as a limiting factor to change in direction. Notice I didn't say flexibility. Those are two different things. You can do all the yoga in the world, or yoga's probably, I don't want to slander yoga. Do any flexibility work in the world to help them bend, and you might not help them improve their change in direction. Think about that. Okay. Down into angular acceleration, reactive strength, some of the trappings of acceleration you see there. So the better accelerator you are, chances are the better you could be with angular acceleration. And then the trappings of grafting becomes those elements of linking those things together, linking a back pedal to a linear sprint, linking a shuffle to a change in direction in a linear sprint, piecing those things together. There's hidden tenths of seconds in all those graphs that end up showing up on game tape as, man, that guy's fast. Or, man, that guy got beat. It was a speed thing. From the dynamic visual acuity that picked it up, to the motor loop that you had to run, to the extra power and horsepower you had from the squats, putting all that together to make sure you're the best version of yourself. So grafting is the word that I use. Probably not a great word, probably blending or linking, or you guys will probably come up with something better. How do I know this? Because I screwed up. But also because I watch fast people. I don't know if this video is going to play. This is Justin Gatlin. I wish it would play. We get to work with really freaky people at MJP. So he was in our place a couple weeks ago. Anybody know who Justin Gatlin is? Sprinter, right? Fast guy. So we get to watch fast guys, and I wish this video played, and maybe if you guys want to see it, I can play it for you. I screwed that one up, guys. But we talk about, in this case, we watch fast people and learn from them. He's a fast guy. We've gotten to see, I think, out of the top 5 fastest men in the world the last 10 years, we've seen 3 of them at MJP, and they all do something really interesting with their acceleration. They don't triple extend. Don't throw anything at me, please. Please don't throw anything at me. You know what else they don't do? They don't extend their hip fully. Please don't throw anything at me. I'm just telling you what fast people do, okay? They do things different. They're fast. They're freaky. Am I saying triple extensions? No. You're missing the point. We can watch movement and learn why fast people are fast. And Justin Gatlin's a great example of incomplete hip extension, incomplete knee extension, and he actually kind of runs on his toes. What am I trying to say here? Ambiguity. Be okay with that, or you will go crazy in this profession. You will constantly swing from the left to the right, finding some philosophy that you can hitch your wagon to. You guys, none of us are the same. None of us are the same, but I can tell you something. You can start to learn from freaks. So watching freaks like this is one of the reasons that we know. The other reason that we know is we have the partnership with Nike. This was a shoe that they developed to beat the 5-10-5 drill at the NFL Combine. And so we worked on this for about 2 years. And they came in, this was after we had the 40-yard dash shoe that we developed with them made illegal at the NFL Combine. Think about that. We worked on a shoe for 2 years for the NFL Combine to break the 4.2 record. We came close with Marquise Goodwin. And the year after that, the Combine held up the shoe and said, this shoe is now illegal at the NFL Combine. Why is it illegal? It's an unfair advantage for the people that have access to it. And so what we'd been working on at that point when they raised that shoe, we had already done another year's worth of work on how to beat the 5-10-5 drill. And so all this technology, all this data that we're listening to is to help design equipment to actually make you a better version of yourselves, to help you realize your fullest potential. Kind of freaky, right? That doesn't mean strength. That's not strength conditioning. The thing is the learnings that they had to create the most optimum shoe, this, by the way, is illegal now at the NFL Combine, is the same trappings that I can get as a coach to learn about change in direction. One of the things we found out with the development of this shoe was that on the 5-10-5 drill, which is a change in direction drill, right? The freakiest, fastest in the 5-10-5, you know what they did the least amount of? The least amount of time decelerating. Think about that. They spent the least amount of time decelerating. In fact, many of our fastest didn't necessarily decelerate at all. And you guys that are watching online, you see me? Start throwing the stones at me on Twitter. I love it. Come on. It's factual. They spent almost zero time decelerating. You know what they did? Ndamukong Suh was one of the freakiest that did this. He would literally, instead of decelerating and stopping, he would what? He would accelerate into the opposite direction. That's how he changed direction. It wasn't deceleration, that I always thought, right? We trained no. He literally, when it was time to turn, used acceleration techniques to change direction. As the turf started to bunch up, cleats started to explode. The guy was 300 pounds, right? So there might be a mindset change that needs to happen here. We already heard it in a previous, I think it was Heather's talk. When do most injuries occur? What phase of that? Decelerations. And I keep scratching my head, I lose more hair. Why are we teaching them to decelerate then? Does that hurt anybody's ego? Hurts mine. Because I spent 20 years teaching people how to decelerate, right? We might need to change the conversation. Let's teach them how to re-accelerate in the opposite direction. My grandma, love her, God bless her soul, right? She has a red Cadillac. Had a red Cadillac. When she'd see a stop sign could be about 300 yards away, going 30 miles an hour. You know what she'd start doing? She'd be on the brakes for 300 yards to slow down, okay? Fast people wouldn't do that. You know what fast people would do? They'd keep their foot on the accelerator pedal until they got all the way nose to the stop sign, and then you know what they'd do? They'd throw it in reverse and rev the engine. That's how they would change direction. That's how they would stop. That's the analogy that we use. And we learned a lot of this from studying other fast things like Formula One. If you ever watch Formula One racing, which is another great sport, I think that's the second most popular sport, right? You guys all think NFL football is there. It's not. It's kind of here in the United States, but we're kind of insular. Formula One racing, big deal. They have brake lights on the back of their cars. You should watch them from the back when they handle these corners. In a lot of cases, those brake lights never come on. You know what they're doing? They're adjusting the fins on the front of this thing so they get more downforce so that they can accelerate. And when they accelerate, what does acceleration do to the fins? It pushes more air over the fins, which creates more what? Downforce on the car, which does what? Sticks them to the track, which allows them to do what? Go faster. Right? Mind-blowing. So I'm not saying we don't do deceleration. No, easy. But let's just think for a minute, maybe we need to eliminate deceleration. Okay? I'm sure Twitter's already blowing up. Thank you guys already for throwing darts at me. That's how I'm putting myself out there as a target. Where do we learn some of these things too? It's from non-sort of athlete development things. Edges and angles, right? I learned a lot of this from folks at IMG, it used to be IPI back in the day, about edges and angles. When people go to change direction, people talk about shin angles, edges of the feet, right? So when the skier's trying to make that left-hand turn, he's trying to get on the edges of his feet. He's trying to get on the outside edge of his inside ski and the inside edge of his outside ski. And you guys here in Colorado know why. Because if you lose an edge, where you go? You fall off the mountain, right? The reason being is the edge is cutting, but also the ground reaction force is doing what? is pushing the body back in the equal and opposite direction if good force transfer is happening. Okay? And all you have to do is take that model and tilt it up on its side, and that begins to look like a change in direction move on a 5-10-5 that we try to teach our combine athletes, doesn't it? Inside edge of the outside foot, outside edge of the inside foot, both shin angles are positive or in the direction you want to go, and making sure you're able to transmit that energy that you're putting into the ground back this way. What does this look like also? If you turn the feet this way, linear acceleration. Ta-da! Okay. And here's another video that I'll show you guys these afterwards, but this is one of our elite NFL guys, first round draft pick running back. And it's an example of him making a cut. I don't think it's going to play. No, it's not going to play. Where he's at the top of the top of the top of the top of the top. And he makes some cuts that can be improved. So everybody can still see improvements. And he's a strong dog in the weight room. And he's got tremendous mobility. But at the end of the day, he's still looking for those little things, those little things that he can add, those little, oh my, that's going to be hard to see. I'll show it to you after. If anybody's interested, I'll show it to you after. Sorry if you're not here, guys, on the podcast, on the stream. You should have been here because I'm going to show it afterwards, all right? But anyway, there's elements of improvement, and it's improvement based on motor. It's improvement based on their ability to create and use some of that horsepower that they developed in the great strength programs. So there's opportunity, right? There's opportunity for those little margins, those marginal gains. We've also figured out, how do we know, is that it's different across the ages. And you're starting to hear a lot about long-term athlete development and philosophies around that. Those are great philosophies. But we practically learned our lesson making a lot of mistakes by training 9-year-olds and 12-year-olds the same way. By training 12-year-olds and 16-year-olds the same way. We screwed up. They all got better, but certain things got them better by complete accident. And so you see all these models, and I encourage you guys that work with kids. You guys, anybody work with kids? Raise your hand high if you work with kids. I love you. That is the hardest strength conditioning job in the world, period. 9-year-olds. You work with 9-year-olds? You want to be a better coach, go work with 9-year-olds for 6 weeks. Volunteer your time. Get them better, okay? Promise you, it'll change your life. It'll change your perspective on coaching. But we learned a lot about these windows dealing with athletes of that age group. And that there's these windows, and you're seeing some new models come out, like the YPD model from Lloyd overseas. So there's a lot of these models that are coming out that are seeing the same thing, like, whoa, there's some cool little stuff that's happening physiologically, morphologically with these young athletes that we can play off of in this space. Agility was talked about, but nothing specific to this point. So we started going back and looking at all of our data, and we started finding out that there was training biases built into the coaches. Like certain coaches would bias their training a certain way. We had a blended program, but there were some natural biases that happened in terms of the programming. The amount of content would kind of fall either 50-50 or 2-to-1 ratios, overall content over a period of 6 to 9 weeks. And so what we started doing was looking at the data from that and finding out who got better, right? They all got better. Congratulations. If you train kids, by the way, congratulations. Everybody gets better by 3% per year, whether they train with you or they play an Xbox. So quit telling everybody you're a guru because you got them 3% faster, okay? That trajectory's already going, pal. Right on? We got to be right here. And so we started seeing these little trajectory bumps because of the mistakes that we made. We saw it in linear speed. We saw it in this common field testing of multidirectional speed too. Certain field tests were more sensitive to pick up some of these things than others. The 5-10-5, more sensitive to the change in direction. The L drill and then the Illinois agility, more sensitive to these angular skills. And I'll be doggone if we didn't figure out that there was an age bias to that sort of training. That if you give them what they need, when they need it, not to say it's all or nothing, it's kind of like a mutual fund. I'm going to push some more money over there for a while, and I'm going to keep a little bit over here. That we got bigger return on both ends of the change on the multidirectional speed paradigm than if we just said, oh, we'll just split it half and half. By mistake, we happened upon this. Again, you're thinking, so what? This guy's talking fast. I still don't have any idea how this applies to me. We created a heat map. We created a heat map for age-specific training. First of its kind, it's not second of its kind, probably. A lot of this was stolen. Most of what I do is stolen, guys, to be honest with you. The stuff that I put up here that's not stolen was because I screwed it up. But there's a heat map now for optimizing the amount of time, energy, and programming you spend on certain things with the young athletes. And multidirectional speed has definitely got some biases that we've identified. Okay, so it's pretty cool. For those of you that are going to NatCon in Vegas, I have an entire lecture series just on this. I think it's a pre-con in Vegas this year. So you'll get more of this when you guys show up to Vegas around the long-term athlete developments. But we started to see there's some key little hot spots. That doesn't mean that the window shuts down, you can't develop it. It just means there's some hot spots in there. But come to Vegas and you'll see the rest of those. Okay? We even have assessments that are age biased around that. So this is all going to be in Vegas. So our training structure. So how are we training multidirectional speed? We train it everywhere, right? So we have a 6-component model. Your multidirectional speed training, as I talked about in that first slide, can actually start happening in your dynamics, in your movement prep, whatever you want to call it. You're not just doing mobility so they don't get hurt, I hope, because you're wasting time. And I'm going to tell you right now, time is going to be the big thing that we're going to start saving. It's getting, college coaches, is it getting less and less? You know what that's going to force our hand to do? Be more and more innovative, more and more efficient. So that's why you don't just see us go take a lap for warm-up anymore in college strength conditioning, right? We don't have time to waste. Okay? So we're doing it everywhere. So we have a 6-component model. I'll share this in Vegas as well. But we've now been able to dial in some of those age biases into our movement training, specifically around multidirectional speed. Okay? So, multidirectional speed, we've got targets for the ages. And again, instead of getting into the ages with this, I want to get right into some of the progressions that you guys, I know a lot of you guys work with kids though, so if you want to talk to me afterwards about where I'm going to be presenting, there's going to be 4 different presentations, I think, nationally this year around this one topic of age biasing your multidirectional speed training. So I'd love to have a dialogue with you guys and make sure you guys are one of those offerings because it's really, really cool stuff. But we get to this. This is another example here. So here's an example of the L run. So the L drill, that's that middle sort of mixture of change in direction and angular. And there's a graft that happens in there. You've got to graft the change in direction to a linear sprint. You guys know where that happens? It happens on that comeback move, that second comeback on that 5 yards. You have to now graft a lateral change in direction into a linear acceleration. So there's a graft in there. So it's a really cool test. The thing we started to find, and I say we, this is a 25 or maybe 30-year-old thing, Blair may have taught me this, is there's a relationship for those that are very, very good at multidirectional speed, a good optimized relationship between the 5-10-5 and the L cone, or the L drill. Anybody, have you guys heard that before? Hopefully. We found out that those guys that are really, and gals that are really, really good at multidirectional speed have about a 1.7 optimization between their L drill time and their 5-10-5. So being able to computate these times allows us to diagnose where weaknesses might be. If it's bigger than that, in other words, it's 1.7 or higher, chances are angular speed may be their limiting factor. Are you with me? Okay, yeah? You've heard all that before though, right? Guys, this is old. This is circa 1982 probably. We kind of turned our back on it somehow, some along the lines. We went back to our data and started finding this with some of our best athletes on the soccer pitch, or some of our first-round draft picks versus our third-round draft picks. There's a reason they do these tests. College prep athletes, we do a lot more of the older athletes. We do the change in direction. We'll get into this out in the lab in just a minute. Change in direction drills, reaction response, where you're having to react and respond off of those drills. So those are changing directions. And we'll take you through some of these progressions, including the box one. We'll get to this last slide and we'll get out of here. Same thing on the 5-10-5. We found, and this is supported by a lot of the old stuff, that you can compare someone's 40-yard dash time, for instance, if you like, or now that's even the research is bringing it down to the 10-yard dash, I think, in some of the new stuff. You can compare that to their 5-10-5 time and find out what? Find out if they have usable speed for their sport. Marquise Goodwin ran a 4.24, 4.27 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. What was important for Marquise Goodwin as a kick returner? To be able to use that speed, right? Because he's not going to be able to catch the ball and run 100 yards straight ahead. He's going to have to do what? Something a little bit angular. He's going to probably have to do something in a change in direction somewhere down the road. So we want to know how good his change in direction speed is that utilizes the trappings of his linear speed. And that offset is important. It's measurable. This is another old number. I'm sure all you guys are like, oh, I've seen that number before. Yeah, use it. It's powerful. 0.5 seconds. How fast should he have run his 5-10-5? 0.5 of a second faster than his 40 time. Is that humanly possible? That would have been an NFL Combine record. But what do you know about his 40 time? Was that pretty crazy? Yeah, it was the third fastest NFL 40 time of all time. So he may be a freak on that end of the spectrum. But if you've got your 4.7 40 kid, and he runs a 4.4 5-10-5, and you've got 2 sessions to work with him, where are you going to spend your time? Well, if he's a linebacker and 4.7's fast enough, you know where I'm going to spend my time? On him being able to use his 4.7 speed to change direction, because that's going to be important for his sport. That's how you can use data, okay? And that's how we use data all the time. Let's just make it better, is all we're trying to do. So now we're going to get up. We're going to go out. We're going to practice. We're going to play around with some of these progressions. Again, if you're interested in the age bias stuff, National Conference, NSCA. You guys at home, I'm sorry, you should have come because none of this is going to be on the deal, right? I mean, we're going to go out there and we're going to take you through all these progressions. So next time you need to be here, but we will be going through these same progressions in Vegas for the pre-con, as well as some Bridge the Gap lectures as well in Vegas in July. I think Scott can correct me if I'm wrong. So, okay, before we go real quick, why do you sweat the details? Before you go, guys, this is important. This is my wrap-up slide. Why do I sweat the details? This is why. Anybody know what this picture is of? Probably not, because you're not a geek like me and looking at these kind of pictures, right? This is the finish line photo at the 2012 Olympic trials, 100-meter dash, final. The girl in front, number 1, finishes 3rd. She goes to the Olympics. Where do you think number 4th place goes? They're done. They go home. Difference, 0.001 seconds. That's why I do what I do. Because don't dare tell me that 0.001 seconds is not important. Go try to tell her that. Go try to tell number 2 that 0.001 is not important. Or tell number 1 0.001 seconds wasn't important. It is important. It is important. Don't sweat the details. Yeah, please. See the forest for the trees? Yeah, but you also need to see the what? See the friggin' trees too. We can do both, right? I think we can do both, but that's why we do what we do. Okay, we got certifications and stuff coming up in the future, but let's go out and you guys want to play around a little bit? We're going to have to hustle though, because I want to show you a lot of cool stuff. Cool? All right, let's go real quick.